Here now with reaction, South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace. So if you're the American people, are you confident in this endless endeavor this administration is undertaking? And if you're Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping, are you wary of this alliance that seems to be everywhere and nowhere and he didn't really lay out?
Right, and that was quite the word salad, if you ask me, kind of an embarrassment on the world stage. And to be in Ukraine on President's Day, as was just mentioned, rather than going to Ohio, where Americans really are suffering on one of the largest environmental disasters in my lifetime, at least it is an embarrassment. And this president's abject failure on foreign policy started with a failed evacuation in Afghanistan and ended last week or 2 weeks ago when he allowed a Chinese spy balloon to traverse all the way across our country over nuclear sites, military sites, before it was shot down. And they knew about it long before then. It is an embarrassment on the world stage. And guess what? I just got back from the Munich Security Conference, so I got to see this firsthand while I was overseas. And there's great concern about what's going on in Ukraine, but we've got to be stronger than this.
Well, I heard it was basically the Ukrainian Security Conference. How do we get more weapons there? And it seems that the administration is falling right into step on that. Help me with the mindset of this, Congresswoman. So he's now spent about 10 times more time, I don't know, or 5 times or 3 times more time in Ukraine than he has at East Palestine and the border combined. I mean, he pit stops at the border or pit stop.
And how much more
his administration
money has
hasn't been
in Ukraine? Yeah.
What's the mindset of that view? We're going to spend billions in Ukraine, but ignore our problems at home.
Right. It's Ukraine first and it's America last as a policy. And the one thing that I want to stress, too, is that we have as a country invested $113 billion, Pete, as you said earlier tonight in the program. $113 billion has been invested. We've seen this administration fumble the ball. If you're going to invest that money, use it the way that it should be, to get the lethal aid there, to do it faster. And we're looking and watching, and I've seen this over the last year, the State Department fumble and slow roll the aid that we're sending over there. And they don't have that much time. And then on top of it, on President's Day, he goes to Ukraine, hasn't even mentioned Ohio, East Palestine, isn't even talking about visiting it. Those people are suffering. They need to hear from their president, and they're not. They need aid. They need support. Our border wall, of course, over 5 million people have crossed illegally into this country. And according with all the drugs and fentanyl coming across, I just had a friend die 3 or 4 weeks ago from an accidental fentanyl overdose. This is serious stuff that's happening on our border, and every town in this country today is a border town.
So when we spend these billions, just real quick, we don't have a lot of time, but what's the easily digestible stated end state of these hundreds of billions we're sending to Ukraine? What do we get out of it at this point?
Well, I think it's important that we protect Ukraine. I mean, this all started, I think, in 2008 when the West didn't pay attention to what was going on in Georgia. Then in 2014, we had Crimea and then the Donbass region, and Putin feels emboldened. Now he's got Iran and China supporting him in his war in Ukraine. But the United States made a commitment in the 90s to Ukraine. They gave up their nuclear weapons. But the one thing that I think Americans don't know a lot about is all of the natural resources and rare earth minerals that the United States uses. If Putin gets a hold of that, the cost of war is going to be far greater than the cost of him taking Ukraine will be far greater than the $113 billion that we're investing right now. We're talking about neon and palladium. We're talking about lumber, wheat and barley, food security for the United States and around the world. It is a big deal. But if we're going to invest that kind of money, we need to get it done and get the lethal aid that they need faster. That's something that's very concerning to me, seeing that kind of money. I don't want to see it wasted. If we're going to spend it, invest it well and do it fast so they can win.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, as someone who spent some time in multi-decade wars in the Middle East, an end state needs to be clear. And I don't want my kids fighting in Donbass for an unclear end state in the future. Congresswoman Mace, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.